Political charisma and the impact of a leader depend heavily on the historical, cultural, and social context of a country.
There's one kind of charisma which occurs when a society is under threat and a charismatic leader shows strength. He shows he's not afraid of this threat, and he can bring his entire society, if they follow him, to have enough self-confidence to overcome that threat. Now, in Hitler's case, that involved showing a tremendous amount of aggression in his nonverbal behavior. If you look at a speech of Hitler's, at the beginning, when he mounts on the podium, you can see some signs of insecurity.
Genossinnen, 30. Januar sind in Deutschland die Würfel gefallen.
What he was extremely clever about doing was to creating a great deal of energy. He spoke with great force.
Und niemals ermüden, und niemals verzagen, und niemals verzweifeln.
And then he had this trick of having trained his followers to have those shared emotions, like he would say something and instead of applause, the audience would all go Heil Hitler at the same time. Well, this gave this image of enormous power because he was speaking with terrific energy and focus and triggering these wild responses of huge crowds. And that was what was being presented in the media, remembering that the media in Hitler's time were movies. And the camera would be placed in a certain place, which would make him look good, and then the resulting film would be edited in a way to remove any sign of weakness. That is, we have a very different world in TV because TV catches what's there.
Even though the political education of the public has developed over the past few decades, all the political imagery transmitted by television and modern media tends to lead people to operate on the principle of contrasting behaviors. The brain instinctively produces a visual comparison of the different political leaders. Certain images are subconsciously memorized. Politicians getting out of cars, smiling, shaking hands, but also expressions of nervousness, sadness, or stress. By quantifying the proportion of positive and negative expressions and postures, the public's brain spontaneously produces a comparative description in terms of authority, self-confidence, and affinity. The key to popularity is quite often found in the combination of three elements: authority, energy, and happiness.
While there are differences between societies and cultures in what voters expect from their politicians and what kind of public performance they expect from their politicians, cultures, of course, also change over time, and expectations change, and they may change very rapidly.
You forecast two things. First, that the decade would be less dangerous if the West maintained the
changes in the expectations of the public usually reflect changes in the society. And one of the major changes in many countries during the last few decades has been the growing role of women and the access of women to leading positions.
I'm thrilled to have everyone here on this stage who represents the past, the present, and the future of our country.
Research has shown that women are more expressive than men, both in their spontaneity and interactivity, particularly with smiling and laughter, which can be their political weapons.
I think women tend to be more low-key in their public performances and not as, they don't make the same kinds of attempts to project power in their gestures and through their body language.
Mountaintops and in caves, you will not escape the justice of this nation.
Men's postures, gestures, and body communication are much more based on the primary patterns of the dominant male, whereas women play much more on a participative, exchange register and are more expressive and receptive.
In general, you can notice some statistical difference between men and women, in the sense that women tend to be more happy, more enthusiastic, and men seems to be more pragmatic, in the sense that they show traces of anger or disgust. However, there are different women which are so-called strong women, which tend to show a lot of emotions that are characteristic to men.
Mr. President, when you welcomed me to the White House,
Alors, lorsque l'État central, en fonctionnant mieux et en étant au clair,
Political combat and the predominance of men in politics forces women to adopt the male style, displaying authority and sometimes aggressiveness, so as to appear at least as credible and competent as their male counterparts.
solidaire, voilà l'enjeu de l'année prochaine.
The real challenge for a woman in politics is to find the right balance between displays of happiness, empathy, receptivity, which are more natural for women, and more offensive displays of authority, which are more natural for men. Hillary Clinton achieves this balance quite successfully.